Hi, this is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching on our friends over at Torah Anytime, or wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, as always, we are happy to have you along. And a couple of shout-outs. Meish Shadoff, assuming I have that right, 14 years old, big fan of the show. And Akiva Chaim Ismaili, 12 years old. During the Corona lockdown, he happened to find the Rabbi Orlofsky Show and has been watching hours and hours and hours nonstop of me. That is not easy to do. Trust me, I have to do it on a regular basis. And I can tell you that that's not easy. So there's your shout outs. And we have a sponsorship this week by Mordy and Lyss. Nishmas, Reuven Peretz ben Getzel Lyss, and Yehudis bas Shraga Feivel Chaim Ference. And it's a zechus for Chana Dena bas Miriam Sprintza to find her zivug. She should find it bekarov, have a bayis naman v'Yisrael, and be zechus to Zeresh HaKayoma. And in honor of Mordy's good friend for over 20 years, Dovid Chesner, and his first hit, Redemption. You can hear his music and follow him on Spotify. Dovid Chesner, spelled Chesner. We give a special thank you to him for introducing me to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show podcast. It changed my life. Baruch Hashem. And actually, his little idea of something that we could talk about. If you had to give a piece of advice for life, what would it be? Thank you for all you do. We love the show, and we wish you much mazel and bracha. Thank you so much for that bracha. And if I had to give you one piece of advice, it's a theme that I've mentioned many times, and that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you and created the world for you and wants you to get the greatest possible life in this world and the next. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I don't have that many infinite friends. And when one of them is out there and would like to help me, I say that's a relationship you should be working on. Okay, so I was actually racking my brains, trying to think what I should talk about. You know, after a while, I've mentioned this in a prior podcast. The last thing I want to do is be trite. And whatever I say, I want it to be something that'll be relevant to people. And I'm surprised how many emails I get that make exactly that point, that, you know, they feel you're so real and you really talk about issues that interest people, you know. I mentioned this many years ago. I give a share every other Motzi Shabbos in Harnof, at least I used to. And very often I'd meet people who went. They said, I love coming to your shiurim because you're so ordinary, and I feel like if you can do it, anybody can. And I appreciate that because I know exactly what they mean. I am an inspiration to the average people out there, or below average, whatever the case happens to be. And you know, what can I tell you? That's the form of inspiration that I try to give over. In any event, so I was talking with my family, and I said, what should I talk about? And one of my daughters made an excellent observation, something that I've never spoken about, but I get asked about a lot in letters. I don't know why I never thought of talking about it. It's such an important point. Because there is a news story that they are expecting an enormous wave of immigration to Getzel from the United States. There was an editorial that was written on one of these online e-zines, whatever they're called, you know, websites that give you news. And it basically said it's time for the Jews of New York to wake up and realize that we're finished in this city. We will never have enough votes to be able to go against people who are not in our interest. There have been an entire slew of anti-Semitic attacks. and no one did anything. And the mayor has no problem going out and marching, without any social distancing or masks for people who want to protest, and not do anything about people who want to riot and destroy stores. But he's soldering gates to playgrounds in Williamsburg. The term for that is discrimination and anti-Semitism. That's the term for it. But we spoke about that in the past. But I met somebody who was in the rental business. He had just bought a property. He was a young man, and he borrowed from the bank, and he got investors, and he bought a rental property. And then they passed a law that you are not allowed to raise your rents, and you can't pass on any expenses to the renters. That means that as time goes on and your expenses go up, you're going to start losing money. There's no way around it. And since there are a lot of from Jews who are in the real estate rental market, that's it. They're finished. Their properties are going to be worth nothing. So that's besides all the attempts to try to force curriculum changes in the yeshivas and on and on and on. So evidently there are a lot of people who are starting to think to themselves, Eretz Yisrael looks like a better and better option for our future. I've told this story before. Rabbi Lev was being interviewed shortly after he came to Eretz Yisrael, and he was a Reuven in Miami, and he was offered a position in Moshav Matisyahu, not the biggest stella in Eretz Yisrael, And he says, I went to Rav Moshe Feinstein and I went to Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, and they both told me the same thing. If you can get yourself a position in Eretz Yisrael, jump at it, because that's the future for Klal Yisrael. So an amazing statement. And what can I tell you? I made this decision 32 years ago to come to Eretz Yisrael. And now there are tens of thousands of people who are considering it, which will, if that actually happens, will dramatically change the face of Eretz Yisrael and the community here forever. There's no question about it. What can I tell you? There's a perspective of history. I came to Eretz Yisrael the first time January 1969, a year and a half after the Six-Day War. And Yerushalayim had one traffic light, the corner of King George and Yafo, and it turned into a blinker at 8 o'clock at night. It was amazingly simple type of a lifestyle. I went to Camp Stay Chemet, 1973 and 1974, the year before the Yom Kippur War and the year after the Yom Kippur War. And life here was amazing, in its simplicity. I used to remember they gave us out napkins at the table. For some reason, it was made out of wax paper. And no matter how much you wiped your hands, I guess that way they could rinse them off and use them again. I don't know, but it was one of the many kashas that people who lived here at the time had. I had a neighbor. I have a cousin who moved here after the Six-Day War, and those were the fiery, enthusiastic people. They were coming because it was part of the miracle of the Six-Day War. People moved here to relocate, and there was only he said there was only one textile factory. Now I remember this because you walk into any bank and they all had these sort of burnt orange curtains. So she says you go out and you buy a dress, and then you see a man walking down the street and he has a tie, and it's made out of the same material as your dress. And then you walk into the bank and the curtains are are made out of the same material of your dress. And you go to get a cup of coffee, and on the tablecloth is the same material as your dress. And what can I tell you? I'm old enough to remember when there was only 2 sodas in Israel. They had Tempo Soda, Tempo Cola, and Coca-Cola. Pepsi was part of the Arab boycott. We couldn't get Pepsi here in Israel. And that's why I saw somebody telling me, Coca-Cola is part of BDS, I don't know what, they quoted some article. And I say, listen, I have Hakar Satov that Coca-Cola stood up to the Arab boycott. They couldn't sell in the Arab countries because they had, they were selling here in Israel, and they fought the boycott. But that was it. You could get Coca-Cola or you could get Tempo Cola, and Tempo Cola was terrible. It was just so difficult to drink. Now I know I spoke last time about Taiva. I don't want to make it sound like an issue of Taiva over here. One person said to me, I know you spoke last time about Taiva, and Taiva is a terrible thing, but I'm stuck here in Corona, and what could I do? I'm just sitting here making different things because I'm just like manically cooking because I'm locked in. So I've been experimenting making really good fried chicken. I said, yeah, Taiva is a terrible thing. Can you send me the recipe? Because it happens to be that I have a number of foods that I have a soft spot for. Unfortunately, there's a lot of them. A really good fried chicken is one of them. We used to have a Mahadran KFC here in Eretz, but it closed down, unfortunately. But so he sent me a recipe. It's actually KFC original recipe chicken, and he says he's been experimenting with different things to try to figure out how to replace the buttermilk. So he says he was using coconut milk and certain other things. Somebody told me that soy milk actually works well. With every cup of soy milk, add a tablespoon of vinegar, mix it together, and wait for it to curdle, and it can take the place of buttermilk. But so I don't want to make it sound like a taiva, but people who had money, American tourists, they would buy Coca-Cola. The rest of us, we had no choice. We drank Tempo. It's kind of rough. It's kind of rough back then. And whatever soda you bought only came in these big, heavy glass bottles that you had to take back to the Makolet for a deposit. And it was there was no diet soda, of course. There was no diet anything. They didn't have that concept over here. Actually, surprisingly, you could still buy saccharin, which had already been banned in America. But here they decided it was really okay. But, it was rough. People used to come and bring their own toilet paper from America. They had a pretty rough toilet paper over here. Yeah? And things with it was a very basic kind of lifestyle that people lived here. I came to learn here for a year in Eretz in 1975. And that gave you a little bit more of a feeling of living here. There was no place to go out to eat. I think there was one Badat's falafel place, Otherwise, it was like no place to go, nothing to do. Used to say that, Yerushalayim was one of those towns where they pulled in the sidewalk at 6 o'clock. Everything sort of came to a halt. You understand? Israel had a whole different. It was a socialist country. So the television used to go off. I forgot what time. 11 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock. I don't know exactly. Because they want you to get up in the morning. They didn't want you sleeping, staying up all night watching TV so you'd sleep late. So they used to just turn off the TV. It was a simpler time. And then when I got married, I came here for a year in 1982. And we lived here, and it was remarkable. Everything was so simple. And we actually enjoyed it very much. I wanted to come back. I actually wanted to stay, and I got upset that I had taken a leave of absence from NCSY, and until I could get somebody who could replace me, I had to go back. So Baruch Hashem, a number of years, I found some replacement. I came back in 1988, and I moved here. And and I made Aliya. And a friend of mine who had made Aliya years earlier, I had no idea what was going on. I could not follow what was happening. And he said to me, I'll help you. He says, you can ask me when, and you can ask me how. And you can ask me who. You can ask me where. You can never ask why. There are no whys. No whys in Israel. There's absolutely amazing things. Now, I'm telling you all this because it's obviously changed. It's not the same place as when I came here in 1982. It's definitely different, but it's still a completely different world than what we're used to. Because as I've noted, because I go back to America on a regular basis, although Israel has progressed, so has America. And a lot of things that we have here, they have it in America as well. Much better. So you have to try to keep up. I mentioned this last time that I used to go to America and have a certain shopping list of things that I just can't get here. Bar cream cheese, real cream cheese, not cream cheese that is sold by fat content. You can get 3%, 5%, 9%, 15%, 30%, but it's all the same stuff. They don't quite have the idea of flavor. And then they have what they call yellow cheese. Yellow cheese is hard cheese. It doesn't come by any particular flavor. In America, you can get all kinds of different flavors. Now, this is changing. This is changing, to be fair. I can go to the store now and I can buy Gouda and I can buy mozzarella, and sometimes you can find Parmesan. On the other hand, we had a number of months where there was no butter. There was no butter to be had in the country. It was a little tiny bit. I have a ongoing relationship with my local makolet. Most people go to big supermarkets, but we go across the street a lot to the makolet. In fact, he has my picture up on the wall. I'm part partner in the place. And he. I came in once. I said, "There's no butter." He says, "Come with me." And he had a couple of bars hidden away. He says, "Yeah, I'll give you one of them." Rationing the butter, How many times have I walked into a store? It could be a drugstore for a medication that I need. It could be whatever. They go, "Ain't the bars." I said, "Excuse me? No, there's none in the country. There's none in the country." Zayef Marty. This cannot be. Oh my gosh. It's so interesting when you talk about seasonal fruit. I came here 32 years ago. Have you ever walked into a fruit store or a supermarket in America and you couldn't buy an orange or an apple? Unheard of. Unheard of. Maybe there was a time when there were more seasonal fruits. And if you want to get the summer fruits, you can only get them in the summer, but that's long gone. I can walk into a fruit store in the United States anywhere at any time and get peaches and plums and nectarines and cherries and grapes and cranberries and blueberries and whatever you want. And here in Israel, the cherry season is about a month. That's it. Then there are no more cherries. It's not really true. They go on discount. You have to check the box and see which are the moldy ones. You can get them at a discount. But so I moved here in August. I went to the fruit store and I said, "Where are the oranges?" It says, "Ed." I said, "What? There's no oranges. When are you gonna have oranges?" "After Sukkot." I said, "What? Why don't you go to Florida?" Like everybody else does. It's a different mindset. Anyway, so with this potential wave of tens of thousands of Jews planning on moving to Israel, so I say to myself, and people have asked me a lot, what do you think about making Aliya? Should I consider making Aliya? Is this a move for me and my family at this time? And there's lots of considerations. It's not an easy question. Sometimes people ask questions that they think are easy questions that really you just can't give a simple answer to, yes or no. Somebody told me, I didn't hear it from them, that Rabbi Bullman and Rabbi Orlofsky tell people, if you have teenage children, don't make Aliya. Sort of a blanket rule. Now, there's no question that it's rough. It's rough for kids to come here. But I'm always nervous about blanket rules. And like I say, things have a tendency to change here in that show. We've been around a long time, and the changes that take place in society are just absolutely amazing. So I want to talk about what are the considerations that people have to make, because this is such a life-changing event. And I have to tell you, there are people who make Aliya, and they can't make it. They go back. Because it's very hard. And sometimes people do a lot of planning, a lot of setting up, and then they come and the realities of life in another country, even if it's Eretz, even if it's your country, and even if it's a Jewish country. I remember I kept saying to my friend as I encountered certain things, why would they? Because I told you. When, what, who, how, never why. Why we don't ask, So but my whole first year, the line I kept getting from people is, Eretz Nikne v'Yisurin. The Gemara says there are three things that are kind of with Yisurin: Olam Haba, Torah, and Gan Eden. Gan Eden, Torah, and Eretz. Eretz is kind of Yisurin. Yeah, Nikne v'Yisurin, sufferings. Yeah. And I said, I understand, but why do they have to go out of their way? But sometimes I would say, why all of a sudden does everybody do everything by a Chazon Ish's shir? You understand? The Chazon Ish was known to have much larger shiurim, So okay, Nikne v'Yisurin is so much. And like I say, tremendous progress has been made. So I realized that this is a topic that needs to be dealt with. And I guess it's sort of appropriate as we start the 3 weeks and we start talking about the days of Churban, what it meant to lose Eretz. So those who are considering possibly relocating their life to be in the place of the destiny of the Jewish people, that's a very important thing. So I'm going to start this week with the simplest point that you need to consider. Yeah, I'd be in America and people would say to me, it's so hard living in Eretz. And I said, yeah, here it is. And I would go over different things about it that were so difficult. And they would say to me, then why do you live here? Now, I used to have people from America come all the time. And they would say to me, the apartments here are so small. And I said, yes, I'm living in a 4-bedroom apartment because I built on another bedroom. But yeah, I lived in a house, a 2-family house in Far Rockaway with a basement and a backyard and a porch and a nice quiet cul-de-sac street. I didn't have to deal with people. And yeah, this is much smaller apartments. And they say to me, it's so hot here. And I said, yeah, we live in the Middle East. We're in the desert. There's no question about it. Sometimes in the summer, you can get one of these chamsins that go on for weeks. Yeah. The only good thing is you don't have to worry that you missed the weather report. I'm in America. You have these news stations that give you the weather every 10 minutes. Here you don't have to. Continued hot. I said, yeah, it's definitely hot. And they say, it's so dusty. Why is it so dusty? And it is dusty. It is dusty. You have a hat in itself, it gets dusty. You have to really keep brushing it if you want it to look presentable. That's why the minhag in Israel is you don't bother looking presentable with your hat. But I'm always amazed at Americans how presentable their hats are. But the way you wash the floors in Israel is what's called sponja. Somebody told me once it was called sponge job. And what it is you take a bucket and you take a rag and you put the rag in the bucket. And then you have a very long squeegee. Now, at least if it was a squeegee, it wouldn't bother me. It's not a squeegee. It's like a spongy material. I'll explain why that's important. And you fold the rag over so it keeps coming unfolded unless you have like a real special method. Some people actually make a hole in it and put it over the thing, right? But then it gets hard when you have to put it into the bucket, And you rub it with this rag on the floor, and then you take the squeegee and squeegee all the water. And I said, when I moved here, why can't we just get a mop? And people explained to me, because the floors are made out of balatot. Now, I didn't know this until I went to buy my apartment, but apparently balatot actually have a name. It's called terrazzo. They said it comes with terrazzo floors, and I was like, oh, and then I said, balatot. Terrazzo. Anyway, so you have all the sand blowing in because there's no way to keep it out. And the sand on those balatot, it would just rip them out to shreds. That's why, and you can't just mop it up. You have to squeegee it out because all the dirt, all the dirty water and sand, you pull it out. So they said, why is it so dusty? I said, I'm sorry, the place was abandoned for 2,000 years, and the girl only comes in twice a week, and she hasn't gotten everything yet, so yeah, it's kind of dusty. And then they always at the end say, then why do you live here? So let me be clear. If you want to move to Israel because you're looking for an easier life, I don't know that that's the solution. What the fellow in this editorial that I read suggested was not moving to Israel. He said either Florida or Texas. And I suppose it'll be an easier life over there, but a meaningful life. So when people would ask me, they say, I'm thinking of making Aliya, and I would discuss all the problems with it. They say, but you live here. And I said, that's different. I'll bring a Torah source in a minute, but first I'd like to go to one of my favorite go-tos, which is, of course, superheroes. Batman had a villain called Mr. Freeze. And Mr. Freeze had some kind of an accident with chemicals, whatever it was, and he could only exist in a sub-zero temperature. So if he went outside, he had to wear a suit that kept him, refrigerated, and otherwise inside his lair, it had to be sub-zero temperature. Yeah. So ask Mr. Freeze, do you like living in sub-zero temperature? It's irrelevant. I have no choice. I can't live that way. Lahavdil from Dolos. When they asked Rabbi Akiva, why are you teaching Torah? It's not Harg Val Yava. You're going to get killed. He says, Lamad Avadaimet, to a fish that's in the river. And a bigger fish is chasing him. And the fox says, come on, you're on the land. And he says, I thought you're supposed to be smart, he says. If in the water, I might get killed or I might not, but outside, I'm for sure going to die. So I live in Eretz Yisrael because I can't breathe anyplace else. Now, don't get me wrong. I love going to America. Ich bin an Amerikai. Yeah, I am an entitled American. Yeah, with white privilege, even though I'm a Jew. And I suffer from anti-Semitism, but apparently I have white privilege. Yeah, but my grandfather came from Vengrov, Poland, never learned English. And my father had to pull himself up by his bootstraps, build a business. He never got to finish school, but he sent us all to school, and we came out as entitled Americans. I know my way around. I go to the store. It's easy. Everything has prices on it. There's a large Persian community in Great Neck, and the story was told that this fellow came, and he wasn't used to America, So he goes, does a whole shopping in the supermarket. She says, $212.16. He says, here, take 200. And she says, no, it's $212.16. Yeah, tell the manager, he'll take it. In America, everything has prices. Here you walk into the Makolet, and there's a random price selector. And when they hear your accent, it definitely goes up. Sometimes I've walked into stores, they said, how much is this? They said, how much you want to pay? I was like, no. Okay, this is Zelobishvili. Ich bin an Amerikai, yeah? So I grew up entitled. So I go back to America. I know the language. I know how everything works. I can read all the signs. I know how everything's going. It's very easy for me. I'm used to it. And here, I'm my grandfather who came from Bengrove. I can make myself understood in Hebrew, but I can't speak in Hebrew. Because when you're a speaker, the words are your tools, and I've never really mastered Hebrew the way my children have to be able to communicate ideas. Occasionally, I can tell a joke in Hebrew. It's very hard, very hard. They have, what they call café hafuch. Café hafuch literally means an upside down coffee because they make it with milk. It's like espresso with milk instead of with hot water, and you add the milk, So I don't know why it's not called a cappuccino, but they also have a cappuccino, café hafuch. Anyway, so I get onto the elevator, and someone had spilled their coffee there. And everybody's like looking at this puddle on the floor, and I go, nope, café hafuch. I got to laugh with that. From Israelis. That was really quite an accomplishment. Anyway, so why would I live here? It's much easier in America. But I breathe when I'm here. I feel like I belong here. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, am I interested in doing this, or do I really want to do it? Because you really have to want to do it. I'm going to talk about that more next week. I'm going to talk about really wanting Getzel and wanting to live here, because it's hard. Getzel nickname Yisur, suffering. So unless you really want it, you're not going to get it. Okay, that's it for this week. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to RabbiOrlofsky.com. Make comments, you can contact me, you can sponsor an episode, and that's about it. I'm Dovid Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. The Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah, anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.